we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, that's right. It's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. I see Tom Q Cat out there in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. I'm doing well. Glad to know you're still out there. Well, guys, something very unexpected happened over the weekend. We got proof of life in a manner of sorts from Mitch McConnell, and we got the announcement of the passing of Lindsey Graham. Totally unexpected. Weird things happening in Washington, D.C. Oh, also, President Trump is going to be going live this Thursday night. We might just have to stream it. So I've done a bit of a breakdown on this picture of Mitch and his wife, Elaine. There's a lot of talk about this online, a lot of people saying things without actually providing sources. I don't know what the hell is going on. But I can tell you what the tools that I use were able to divine. We've also got new information on various bits of fraud, the likely passage of the Save America Act, now due to the untimely passing of one Lindsey Graham, and a whole bunch of other craziness. So if you guys don't mind, please hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to be right back after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope that you're having a lovely afternoon. I hope you had a good weekend. Yeah, definitely not on my bingo card that Mitch McConnell was going to outlive Lindsey Graham. If you would have asked me to put money on one of those 2 things happening first, Lindsey going first would certainly not have been my guess. I would have lost that bet, probably in the same way I would have lost on Conor McGregor this weekend. Holy jeez, did you guys happen to see that? One of the absolute most cringe-inducing returns to the UFC that I've ever seen. I think a lot of people were believing that Conor McGregor was going to come back in with a bang, and he just waltzed in with a limp instead. It was a little bit shocking. All right, guys. Well, listen, before we get into everything, I do have one final sponsor to start the show with, our friends over here at Rumble. You guys, you probably hear a lot about crypto. I know I talk about it, but this is one of the big parts that a lot of people miss. Crypto was created so that you would own and control your own money instead of a bank doing it, because after the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding onto your money, delaying transfers, limiting access, it puts you in control. If you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So fast forward to today. Everybody's heard about crypto, but maybe getting started might feel a little bit complicated, maybe even a little bit stress-inducing. This is exactly why I like Rumble Wallet, because it takes all of the complexity out of it. It makes it very, very simple. You choose what you want to use, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly to MoonPay, and then you can use your credit card, your debit card, or your bank account, and you're up and running in just a few minutes. Then once you get set up, you can even support your favorite creators on Rumble, whether it's myself or someone else directly. So do this right now. Use that QR code on screen, scan it with your phone, and that will take you directly to the place where you download Rumble Wallet. You can also click the link in the chat, or if you're not on Rumble, go to wallet.rumble.com. And from there, you set up the wallet, you tap buy, and you're in the game. And then in just a few minutes, you go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you so much to Rumble Wallet. All right. Now, considering all of the heavy stuff we've got to talk about today, I'd like to talk about this very strange story. Anybody in the chat live in or near Tatawa, New Jersey? I don't know much about this place, and I really don't know much about this case other than to say that a man got into his car around 5:30 this morning and it blew up. There was apparently no fireball. There was no real explosion. There was, of course, a loud bang, and you'll see why when I show you this man's car in just a second. But we don't have any indication as to who this guy was or why the car blew up. It was an Audi. For all intents and purposes, looks like a great car.
News
but take a look.
This morning, a car explodes in a neighborhood in Passaic County.
Yeah, take a look.
Like, first of all, anybody here like on a bomb squad? Do we have any LEOs in the chat? Any firemen? I mean, what in the world could cause a car to blow up like this? It almost looks as if there was a compressed air tank or a gas tank in this vehicle, and then it blew up and just like tore the roof off and threw the doors off.
Look at this. News 12 New Jersey's Tony Caputo just got to the scene there in Totowa. He's joining us live this
Totowa. That's how you say it. Totowa.
morning.
Yeah, mob hit. That was the first thing that I thought, to be honest with you. It's New Jersey after all, and they haven't identified this man. This doesn't look like a Tony Soprano type neighborhood, though. It's kind of, it's not an electric car either, because if it was electric, then there would have been a fireball, and that car would be reduced to cinders. There just doesn't appear to be any flames.
I just want to point out that for whatever reason at this point, we've been asked to not show the scene area by the Sheriff's Department here in Passaic County. They said something about their bombs.
No, his wife was right there. I think him and his wife and his child were all injured to some degree. He miraculously survived. He was sitting in the car when it blew up.
Squad vehicles, what have you, that's fine.
Okay, Kemp is over. It says acetylene tank. He was a welder and a plumber. Is that confirmed? Because I haven't seen that reported anywhere.
Totally respect that, respect the work that they do. We do have video, though, of this exploded vehicle, which appears to be an Audi. It happened on Congressional Drive, and to be honest, we do not.
And yes, new case, my question, that's what I was saying. Is that confirmed? Because, I mean, it's not, like, I can see you keeping an acetylene tank in your work truck or maybe in, like, a box truck, but in the back seat of your Audi A6 or whatever?
Have a visual from where we're standing. It's around the corner from where we are in this townhouse complex.
Like, look at that car.
However, have an eyewitness with me. Sheldon Blaine is here. He lives, you live just across from where the explosion happened.
Our house is the corner house, and the car exploded right in front of our house.
You said it happened about 5:30.
About 5:30 in the morning, we heard a loud.
Grok confirmed it. I'm not super inclined to just believe it because Grok says it. I'm looking for it to be reported from, like, someone local there. Because the problem with Grok, and maybe people don't realize this, but Grok will give you answers based upon what people are saying on X. And so somebody could say something that's not true on X and say it with authority, and then Grok will reference that tweet and then say, well, this is the answer. So give me just a moment while this is playing. I'll see if I can confirm it.
Loud bang. We went outside. We looked outside. We saw an exploded car. We ran downstairs. We saw glass. The explosion blew in our door and blew in the windows. And we saw the wife of the individual who was in the car. She came out and said, Her husband came into the house. He was injured. He was in the car when it exploded. And so we yelled at her to call 911. And basically she called it, and it wasn't, like, I guess later on we found out it was an Audi, but the car was exploded. All you saw was a mangled wreck of her car and pieces of the car everywhere.
Yeah, we have some pictures of that to show the folks at home as well. So basically, the way you're describing...
Okay, so the ATF says it is believed to be a gas cylinder in the trunk and may have caused the explosion. He is a plumber. He had a tank of acetylene in his trunk. I stand corrected. See, all I ever want to do is confirm from at least 2 sources before I just go saying something.
Describing this is, to your knowledge, this gentleman gets in his car, I guess starts the car at some point.
I know, Vegas, I would get so much further if I just didn't care about, like, my own self-respect.
We know he was in his car. We don't know if because this gentleman sometimes likes to sit in his car, like, I don't know, after work to kind of, like, unwind or something. So he might have been winding up to get ready to go to work. But all you do is...
I know, Nuke. I mean, that's a good business. I mean, he's got an Audi. And this looks like an Audi... I think this looks like an Audi SUV, to be honest with you, because it looks like it might have a hatchback. But then again, the ass end of the car might have just gotten blown out to the degree that I can't even tell you what exact model it is. But either way, okay, sounds like he was a plumber and he had some sort of a tank in the back end of his car. But geez, oh, Pete's, man. I mean, get a work truck. Then you don't have to worry about that stuff. All right, so let's dig right into Mitch McConnell. So I definitely did not expect to see Mitch McConnell posting any proof of life over the weekend. We had an announcement from Mitch, allegedly himself, and then also from his wife. It was basically a repeat of an announcement that she had already published several days earlier. But Mitch McConnell claims that he suffered a fall, and then he developed pneumonia, and then because of that, he's had to stay in the hospital. So my doctors have confirmed that I didn't break any bones or suffer a concussion, is what Mitch McConnell allegedly said. Also, I didn't have a heart attack or a stroke. I don't have any tumors or hemorrhages, but I was briefly unconscious and was taken to the hospital. While receiving excellent care over the past several weeks, I've also had to deal with a mild case of pneumonia, which, if you know anything about 84-year-old men getting pneumonia, everybody here knows that that can be quite dangerous. Now, I can assure you that I've been a good patient. At my age, I tend to do what my doctors tell me to do. I've submitted to every test they can think of to help figure out what caused this incident, as I'm continuing to do everything they ask to speed my recovery. In fact, with signs of continued progress, I've been able to move from hospital care to a rehabilitation center where I keep regaining my strength. Now, that rehabilitation center is directly across the street from George Washington Hospital. And I actually did have a little bit of information about the types of patients that they actually will take care of at that very rehabilitation center. We'll look at that in just a moment. As much as it frustrates me, this process takes time, and on the advice of my doctors, I won't be able to return to the Senate floor to vote quite yet. But rest assured that in the meantime, I'm not taking a break from the Senate business that matters to you. Now, this statement does not make any sense, you guys, because Mitch McConnell can barely string together a series of words to make a coherent sentence when he's in person. I strongly don't believe that this statement was written by him. I tend to believe that it must have been written either by his wife or by people in his PR department or people working in his staff, on his senatorial staff. So anyways, he claims, or the announcement claims, that he doesn't have any of the things that we all speculated that he might have. And here is that photograph of him. Now, you're going to see this photograph in a couple of different formats. That formatting is all going to be dependent upon the website where it's going to be embedded. I have what I believe is the original photograph, which I will show you right now. In the larger photograph, you have Mitch McConnell holding on to a newspaper. I haven't seen this newspaper connected to a specific date, okay? But I have seen a lot of people suggesting that when you zoom in on the text of the newspaper, it looks like gibberish. That's not surprising to me, because if you take a look at Mitch's shirt and his hands, and, you know, if you look at the other parts of the photograph, it does appear to be a bit pixelated, which is something that you will see when a photograph is compressed to be shared online. It's certainly not in the full resolution in which this photograph seems to have been taken. Now, let me actually show you something. Somebody had been sharing this around, and I saw people looking at this, and they were like, oh, well, that proves it. This is definitely AI. So what we have here is a AI sharpened portion of the image. And yeah, it all looks like gobbledygook because the AI couldn't make it out. You can tell that this is not the exact same image. It is an approximation made by an artificial intelligence of the image. His shirt is sharper. The details are finer on the newspaper. However, the edges of the photograph appear to be almost physical, not printed on the photograph. Now, here is someone who has actually gotten the cover of that very paper. It is from yesterday, Sunday, July 12th, 2026, and the Washington Post sports section. All right. Now, all of these things notwithstanding, I'm not going to make a judgment until we get to a little bit further on. But this is only AI, and that's why it looks the way that it does. So we can't just trust that to say that the photograph itself is AI. I saw people suggesting that this photograph, a version of this photograph, was posted back in 2023. I never saw a version of this photograph posted back in 2023. I used a number of image searchable websites to try to find any version of this photograph that was posted before yesterday. I couldn't find it. I saw somebody had posted a version of Mitch McConnell sitting there with a hospital gown on. It was exactly the same as this photograph, other than the outfit that he was wearing. So that tells me that one of those photographs definitely appears to be AI. And I don't necessarily believe that it's this one. And let me now show you the bit of information about Mitch McConnell's rehab that he is allegedly staying at. Okay, hold on. Here it is. Here it is. Okay. So, McConnell claims after 4 weeks in the hospital, he's now at the rehab center. His Capitol Police detail is still at the hospital. The hospital itself has most of its rehab clinics across the street and only 2 core ones on site. So either advanced heart failure therapy or acute rehab. And so based upon the fact that his security detail is still at the hospital where he's been convalescing for the last month or so, that would indicate that he's at the rehab center, which is at the hospital, which means he could only be at one of these 2 rehab centers. This is a bit of logical deduction, so don't hold me to it if he comes out and says that he's someplace else. The acute rehab center is only 19 beds, and that's for the most serious conditions, patients who need round-the-clock therapy and support. That sounds to me like that could be a case for Mitch McConnell. Their own site lists the types of conditions that they are treating, including recovery after brain injuries, strokes, neurological disorders, and major trauma. Mobility issues would get treated at the outpatient rehab, which is at the Foggy Bottom campus. Now, post-ventilator rehabilitation happens in the core hospital medical rooms directly, so he wouldn't actually have moved out of the original hospital room. Now, we know if he is in neither of these, the type of chair that he's in doesn't match recent photos from the main hospital. So it must mean that McConnell is likely in the acute rehab center, which specializes primarily in patients with brain injuries and neurological issues. Now, let me tell you about the investigation I did of this image. So just from a visual forensic analysis, ran it through a number of different tools, looking for, there are some key things that you were going to find if an image was made with a traditional or commercially available artificial intelligence image generation tool. So you're going to look at the skin. Now, this is not just me. Obviously, I did visual inspection, but I ran it through this tool for the skin and the facial details. The skin of both he and his wife does appear to be natural. You see realistic pores, you see subtle wrinkles, you see age spots, you see variation. The light appears to be casting correctly. They also have proper reflections in the eyeglasses a little bit, in the eyes as well. The background appears to be proper. There isn't the sort of glitches that you expect to see when you're looking for an AI generator, but mostly the greatest argument in favor of this being a real photograph is the metadata and the ICC profile. The ICC profile indicates that it was taken with an Apple phone. It is the proper size and resolution and DPI for an Apple photograph taken on an iPhone. It also has no stripping of the metadata. There are no compression artifacts. I took it apart in layers, and the layers all work correctly. So all I can say is that based upon regular image generators that you might find like Grok, OpenAI, Stable Diffusion, something like that, this was not created by one of them. However, Mitch McConnell works for the government. There's a couple of different things that may be correct. Her hand is not missing. Her hand is on the other side of the chair, so it's like on her leg or something. Now, Mitch McConnell and his wife, they may have used a AI that is government grade that is going to be able to cover up all of those things that you would normally look for to determine if this photograph was made by AI. Okay, that's a given, and I'm willing to cop to that. The other thing is that Mitch McConnell may have actually had access to medical care, which sped the healing for something horrific that might have happened to him. If he did have a heart attack, if he did stop breathing, if he did had some sort of oxygen deprivation to his brain. And so perhaps that is always a possibility. But the overall, I can't say from this photograph that it is a commercial and consumer grade AI. Until Mitch McConnell steps out into the real world and makes an appearance, I still don't believe that Mitch McConnell is I don't think that the true story about Mitch McConnell has been told yet. We'll go ahead and say that. All right. Now, continuing, Lindsey Graham and his untimely passing. He was in Ukraine visiting a drone factory. There is also a bit of a conspiracy about about Lindsey Graham. There are people online who are suggesting that Lindsey never passed away in Washington, D.C., that he never made it home from Ukraine, because shortly before Lindsey visited this drone factory in Ukraine, Russia had apparently given a notice to the State Department that any Americans in the area should probably leave because they were about to send some bombs or some missiles that way. But Lindsey Graham went and took a photograph. He had like a whole photo session there for a period of time. We don't know how long he was there. Allegedly, he made his way back. From what I understand, the trip from where he was in Ukraine would have required a rather lengthy train ride to Poland, and it would be from Poland that he would then fly back to the United States of America. If he did make it back, then President Trump is saying that he had a short conversation with him between 6:30 and 7 p.m. And President Trump said that, I thought he was fine. He called me last night. He had just got back from Ukraine. He had a great trip. He was telling me about the trip. He was full of vim and vigor. He said he was tired. He said, I'm tired because it's a long trip. But other than that, he was fine. And he called me, I guess it was just moments before, because he called me at like 6:30 or something, and the medical people got there a little bit later, right after that. And of course, President Trump was very complimentary about Lindsey Graham. He spoke to a number of mainstream media reporters about him, calling him a natural politician, great politician, said he was a tough cookie. And he definitely told people numerous times that Lindsey Graham was pushing very, very hard for the Save America Act. And now President Trump is saying that we must go ahead and get the Save America Act passed so that we can honor Lindsey Graham. That's kind of the sentiment that I'm seeing around Washington, D.C. Now, a number of the mainstream media reporters who are attempting to move President Trump off the goalpost, and they want him to talk about other things, but President Trump pretty much for the last 24 hours really just wanted to talk about Lindsey Graham. Now, we do have a cause of death for Lindsey Graham. However, that doesn't mean that the FBI and the DOJ may not want to investigate. So initially, it was reported that Lindsey Graham's death was being investigated as a potential crime scene. So the FBI and the Violent Crimes Task Force was spotted at the home of Lindsey Graham yesterday during the day. And his death was described as a brief and sudden illness. I was actually staying up late on Saturday night, and I saw the announcement from Lindsey Graham's office. And it basically said just that, Senator Lindsey Graham has died. After a brief and sudden illness this evening, he died in his home. Something along those lines. And so anyways, the FBI shows up at Lindsey Graham's house, and they are doing some form of an investigation. I have seen people suggest that Russia killed Lindsey Graham. I want to go on record and say I think that's bullshit. If anybody killed Lindsey Graham, if I had to put a certain country on it, I would say that Ukraine, who has recently been the king of assassinations, even greater than the IDF, would have a better reason for wanting to kill Lindsey Graham, because then they could blame the Russians, and Ukraine could then develop more support for their cause. Right now, you've got all of these European nations that are pulling out, and they're saying, we don't want to be a part of this war anymore. You guys need to really kiss and make up. Let's go ahead and get this over with. Zelensky doesn't want that because, of course, then he's not going to be president anymore, and he might end up getting arrested. Everybody in his government has gotten arrested. So Ukraine could assassinate Lindsey Graham and then blame it on Russia and then say, please, see, we need you even more than ever. So, look, they killed Lindsey Graham. Terrible people.
You got it? Record it.
So I guess this is Ivan outside of Lindsey Graham's house.
All right, take a look here, folks. FBI is on the scene. They're trying to figure out what's going on. I guess they're investigating.
Okay, so I should mention that Lindsey Graham's official cause of death was listed by the D.C. medical examiner as aortic dissection. So essentially a tear in his aorta, which caused him to bleed out rather quickly.
Lindsey Graham. This is right in front of Lindsey Graham's home, supposedly. For context, go ahead and share, folks. Just got here. And just for context, a lot of you have been following the January 6th pipe bomber story.
Okay. So I certainly think it's interesting that the FBI was investigating yesterday. However, now that it's Monday and we have the official cause of death as aortic dissection, it just kind of looks to me more like protocol, right? So the 911 call from Lindsey Graham's home was released. It doesn't sound very good, so I'm not going to play it. It's basically, male, chest pain, get somebody here, blah, blah, blah. Not too much was really revealed from it. But here, President Trump had said, Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the greatest people and senators I have ever known, is dead. He was always working. He was a true American patriot. Lindsey will be greatly missed. Details and arrangements to follow. So sad, President Donald J. Trump. In honor of the remarkable life and achievements of Senator Lindsey Graham, a dear friend of mine and a truly great man who achieved so much for our country and his beloved home state of South Carolina, I am ordering all flags throughout the United States lowered to half-mast until Saturday evening at 6 p.m. God bless you, Lindsey. President Donald J. Trump. So obviously that'll be next Saturday. Now, interestingly enough, Netanyahu also came out and said that he had a call with Lindsey Graham shortly before he passed away, and that in his call, allegedly Netanyahu said, Lindsey, we can pay for our own military. And Lindsey Graham said, poppycock, we must pay for your military. I can't let the Israelis defend themselves. You must allow the United States to continue paying for your military. It just sounds so ridiculous. So I don't know. Maybe Netanyahu is going to say, I was going to start paying for our military, but, Lindsey Graham said that we have to keep letting the United States foot the bill. So, in honor of Lindsey Graham, we'll just accept humbly that $4 billion a year. So, all right. Now, President Trump also came up and mentioned that he wanted the sister of the deceased, that would be Lindsey Graham's sister. Her name is Darlene Graham Nordone, to fill the seat as the interim senator. So this is how it goes. So Lindsey Graham was in the midst of a re-election campaign right now. He already won his primary. So what they need is the governor to appoint a temporary replacement who will serve until January when the new senator is sworn in. There is also now going to be a special election, a special primary amongst Republicans to determine who will take Lindsey Graham's place on the ballot. Now, this could be, just a handful of people. It could be one person who steps forward with the approval of President Trump. We don't exactly know how it's going to look. There have been a couple of people who seem like they might throw their hat in the ring, like Nancy Mace. People are suggesting Nikki Haley, which I think is like one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. I don't know. There were other people that were in the primary. Nancy Mace obviously ran for governor. She lost. I don't know that she would be able to get the support to be the candidate for Senate. But either way, President Trump earlier today said, I recommend to Governor Henry McMaster, Lindsey Graham's wonderful sister, Darlene, to serve as interim senator for the great state of South Carolina. This would be a fabulous tribute to Lindsey, who loved her dearly. Now, President Trump has already gotten his wish and Darlene as the replacement, the interim senator from the state of South Carolina. Here is Governor McMaster.
In years long departed, it's my honor to ask his little sister, Darlene Graham, to finish his work for him now. And by the way, Darlene, I don't know if I told you, but after we spoke on the phone in the wee hours of Sunday morning, and you agreed to serve through tears earlier.
Well, she's not a politician, so I can't tell you anything about what she believes or how she's going to vote. But I have to be honest, when I heard that President Trump had wanted his sister to be the replacement, I thought, like, how funny would it be if, like, Lindsey Graham just walked out on stage in a wig? Like what a clown world thing to do.
I had wondered what you would say in years long departed.
All right, so you can't see her right there, but she is now going to be the interim senator. In terms of who President Trump wants to actually be for the primary, I haven't seen anything posted by him. Now, if Lindsey Graham's sister votes the way Donald Trump wants her to, then that's all we need. To be frank with you, I don't know that she's even going to have the opportunity to vote on much, because it's not like the Senate has been all that productive in this last term. So, we may not get much of anything out of her, and, who cares at this point? The only thing I really care about, and it seems like the only thing President Trump really cares about, is election security, election integrity. And Senator Mike Lee, one of the authors of the Save America Act, has said that we've only got 20 legislative days left. We are now on the official countdown to get the Save America Act passed so that it will count for the upcoming election in November. So I don't know how much faith I have in this, but the death of Lindsey Graham might be what these people need to get them pushed into action. And given the limited amount of time that we have, it also might be what J.D. Vance has been waiting on to seize control of the Senate and force this to happen as well. So Senator Lee contends that Congress has the authority to alter its own schedule if leaders determine the legislation warrants immediate action. So let's go ahead and take a listen very briefly to what Based Mike Lee had to say to Maria Bartiromo.
Examine what it is that voters want right now. Overwhelmingly, not only do they support this bill, but they understand that it ought to take preeminence. It ought to take precedence over other legislation we should be supporting right now. So I think that's where the disagreement lies, is in the vision that we can pass this, even though we don't yet have 60 votes. We do have a simple majority. And on the technique, the method by which we bring it about. But it does take effort and some creative thinking. We can get it done.
Now, there are also more people now who are saying that it will be necessary to kill the filibuster. Fine, go ahead and do it. I don't care. Let's get it done, whatever you need to do.
You've got, 8 legislative days or 20 legislative days in the Senate and eight legislative days in the House before the next recess. I know Mike Johnson is talking about a third reconciliation bill, but again, John Thune says stop talking about a third reconciliation bill to colleagues when he's talking with them privately?
Yeah, look, first of all, we have control over how many legislative days we have left. It need not be that short a period of time. We could choose to work through weekends, through scheduled recesses, and frankly, we should. Especially when something like this comes up, where we see a massive vulnerability in our election security. That affects not only potentially the outcome of elections, but also the way in which they're perceived. When we see something like that, and we have a ready, popular, widely accepted, widely supported solution, we need to re-examine our own practices, even our own schedules, in order to get it done. We can do that, and we must.
Okay, so then please, let's go ahead and get it. But again, I'm just, you know, these people do not inspire confidence, and as far as I'm concerned. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. He says the mainstream media are reporting that Trump's address to the... Okay, I'm not saying that yet because I've got it all queued up. DB63me says, yep, called BS when the post came out. Definitely not proof of life. Twatter posts don't count. Neither do pictures. Mitch needs to make an actual appearance in person and not friendly news media. I absolutely agree. Darla says, hey, Zach and Lisa, I have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell on the Mitch McConnell being alive or coherent enough to make a statement. I agree with you. All right. Now, strangely enough, also, Untamed Nation, thank you very much for rating the stream. It looks like the hell may have frozen over and pigs may be flying because President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, has come forward and said that he and President Trump have reconciled and have since bonded over their shared experience of betrayal. Now, it's also entirely possible that these two never really had a rift. I mean, Michael Cohen has said previously that he was essentially told that if he didn't turn on President Trump, that they were going to put him in prison. And they put him in prison anyways. But they've had allegedly a reunion behind the scenes. And this report came from the New York Times, where he said that Trump and Cohen had a private meeting last summer at Bedminster in New Jersey. The meeting was reportedly followed by another discussion this year and additional contact with several of President Trump's closest allies. Now, I'm sure you'll remember the testimony from Cohen helped secure President Trump's conviction on those fake charges for the falsification of business records and has sharply changed his public rhetoric in recent months. He has increasingly criticized the prosecutors who built the case and says that his relationship with President Trump is now a lot better than what it used to be. If Donald Trump and Michael Cohen can rekindle and reconcile their past relationship, then anyone should be able to do it. Now, even if they did really have a rift and Michael Cohen really did turn on President Trump and President Trump didn't say, you have my blessing to do what you need to do. I realize you're not a billionaire like me. Just go ahead and stay out of prison. I'll fight it because this is what I have to do. President Trump has shown in the relationships past that he has the ability to forgive and forget, that he can look past what I think a lot of people in the audience would consider to be a stabbing in the back that they could never possibly overlook. Now, Cohen is also about to launch a radio show on WABC in New York, and this is a largely conservative audience, and he said he hopes this program will eventually become nationally syndicated. It could also be that Michael Cohen is also just trying to make a buck, and so he knows that in order to be on a conservative station, he's obviously got to play nice with President Trump. But this truce marks a remarkable reversal of fortune for Michael Cohen after several years because they were previously at each other's throats. President Trump had nothing good to say about Michael Cohen, and Michael Cohen said a lot of really nasty things about President Trump. So after pleading guilty to federal crimes in 2018, which included charges related to the $130,000 payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels, which, allegedly was for President Trump, Michael Cohen spent years cooperating with investigators. He published books attacking President Trump. He had a podcast. He made frequent television appearances, and he would often criticize the president. Then later, he was a key witness in the fake Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's prosecution of President Trump, which was made up of crimes that were not even crimes. And he has since argued that he was compelled and coerced to deliver what it was they were seeking. Now, Cohen has also accused prosecutors of asking inappropriate leading questions to elicit answers that supported their narrative. I think that's 100% true. And according to the Times, Cohen said backlash from liberal supporters over those comments eventually led to the renewed contact with President Trump. We rekindled our relationship because of a shared experience of betrayal. Now, according to the report, Cohen has had contact with people like Laura Trump and has defended the president in recent interviews over questions related to his non-relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Also, according to the Times, the owner of WABC checked in with the White House before offering Cohen the radio show, though he did not offer any further details. Also, in the run-up to the 2024 presidential election, Cohen claimed that Trump would assassinate his political opponents if he ever returned to office, just like Putin. Once you start to get too big for your own britches, people start flying out of windows, they will end up in gulags, he said on MSNBC at the time. As Donald says all the time, send them to Gitmo, send them to Guantanamo Bay. I personally would love to hear the president say that. That wouldn't bother me at all. Let's start rounding up these so-called political enemies. They're actually just enemies of the nation, and we can go ahead and deal with them. Let's just dispatch all of the evil in one fell swoop. All right, now, we do have some new information on the deceased brother of Hillary Rodham Clinton, Tony Rodham, and this is due to FOIA requests from the one and only Judicial Watch. It actually appears that Tony Rodham was under FBI investigation. They suspected him of committing mail and wire fraud during the time that Hillary Clinton was Bill Clinton's wife in the White House. So there were years, I guess they were trying to get these records, stonewalling. There was the FOIA lawsuit. The final result was 77 pages of heavily redacted records coming from the FBI, which all seem to confirm that Tony Rodham, the brother of Hillary, was the subject of a 1996 FBI criminal investigation into the aforementioned crimes. Now, the probe was opened by the FBI field office in Miami. Case number 196D-MM-79121. The 196 designation is reserved for wire fraud cases, and it focused on his involvement with East European Imports Incorporated in Coral Gables, Florida. Now, according to these documents, associates that were operating through East European Imports in Coral Gables all claimed exclusive U.S. rights to import Romanian ARO four-wheel drive vehicles. So they aggressively solicited $30,000 plus deposits from auto dealers across the country for so-called exclusive franchises, also rights to parts, special tools, and sign packages. And then there would be additional money that would be due upon acceptance of the vehicles. However, they never actually imported any of these vehicles. And the FBI concluded that there was very little likelihood that any ARO vehicles would ever make it to America through EEI. Getting worse, though, the subjects had already run a nearly identical scam earlier. From 1986 to 1987, they had another company called Roman Motors Corporation, and this was, again, while Hillary Clinton was the First Lady of the United States. So when you dive into the records, it shows that Tony Rodham would travel back and forth to Romania with the principals of EEI. They met multiple times with Romanian officials, and they helped to promote this venture. But crucially, there were credible allegations that Tony was directly told telling the associates that they had submitted fraudulent and inflated financial statements to Romanian authorities to make their credibility seem as if their business was going to be far more successful than what it actually looked like. Now, despite this warning, Rodham continued promoting EEI to the Romanian government as a legitimate importer, and the FBI itself flagged this obvious problem in black and white. Within the documents, it said the investigation has assumed sensitive political aspects because it has been determined that Tony Rodham, a brother of Hillary Rodham Clinton, may have played a role in securing the alleged ARO importation rights on behalf of EEI. Undoubtedly, Tony Rodham was using his position as the brother of the First Lady to make this company believe that he had more power than he actually controlled. Now, Tom Fitton said after more than 2 decades of delay, these FBI records reveal a criminal investigation involving Hillary Clinton's brother and raise serious questions about what remains hidden in the government's files, not only about Hillary and her brother, but Hillary herself. So the FBI has already admitted they possess over 13,000 additional pages of responsive records related to Tony. They have audio and video files. There was an earlier FOIA request that did not fully yield what they were looking for. Much of it, however, remains hidden behind heavy redactions and bureaucratic delays. So Hillary Rodham Clinton had a brother, Tony, who has been embroiled in a number of scandals that we've spoken about before. Haitian gold was another one. And as far as I know, there's not actually any gold in Haiti. But for decades, this man, Tony Rodham, would use his connection, his proximity to his sister and the Clinton family to further his own interests. He often described himself as a facilitator with a range of opportunities, like addressing Chinese investor conferences, joining an advisory board for a committee seeking permission to mine that gold in Haiti, and among other controversies, he also pursued contracts in post-earthquake Haiti. He sought a $22 million housing deal while Bill Clinton co-chaired the Recovery Commission. That proposal ultimately collapsed, and I don't know if Tony got away with any money, but he certainly never did anything that was for the people of Haiti. And then when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, there was an issue with former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe and Tony Rodham. They together were involved in a controversy over their involvement in a visa scam program, EB-5 Cash for Visas program. In that scam, they allegedly raised at least $46 million from investors for their other company, Green Tech Automotive. This was an electric car company that never produced anything. They filed for bankruptcy in February of 2018. It was in August of 2017 that Judicial Watch uncovered records from the State Department, which revealed repeated use of unsecured communications for classified information and numerous examples of Clinton Foundation donors who would get special favors from the former Secretary of State, Miss Clinton. Now, the emails also reveal instances of Tony Rodham seeming to attempt to leverage his influence as a brother to the Clintons. In January 2010, Clinton's confidential assistant, Monica Hanley, forwarded to Deputy Chief of Staff Huma Abedin a request from Tony Rodham on 3 issues. One of them involved help with a green card renewal. Another involved a visit by someone of which Abedin said they wanted to regret. And a third involved a job for someone whose resume Rodham had forwarded to the state. Well, in July of 2017, when Judicial Watch received these records from the State Department, revealing incidents including Huma Abedin providing special State Department treatment to major donors that were giving money to the Clinton Foundation and political campaigns, they said, hey, this is definitely a rabbit hole we've got to continue going down. And these heavily redacted documents from Abedin's non-government account included an email from Rodham to Abedin revealing that he acted as this go-between for the Clinton Foundation and a donor by the name of Richard Park. Now, the records also revealed Clinton Foundation executive Doug Band instructed Abedin to show love to Clinton donor Andrew Leveris. Where the Clintons go, controversy is sure to follow. All right. Now, this is definitely a story that I think is probably going to piss some people off, but of course there has to be a little bit of context given here. I've seen a lot of people over the course of the last week or so posting online about various Haitians who are receiving extensions for their TPS. Now, we've gone over the exact specifics of TPS on the program before, but I think that it would probably help to just do it in brief once more. If a employer who is employing a person with TPS status chooses to sponsor them, they can, which means that that person can stay in the country longer, giving them the time to get a different status for their immigration paperwork. But hundreds of thousands of Haitian nationals living in the United States right now received a temporary reprieve just this past Friday because the Trump administration extended their work authorization for an additional 2 weeks. So That means that carte blanche across the board. If you are a Haitian and you have TPS, you have now been granted a little bit longer to get things together. As far as I'm aware, this doesn't apply to anybody else who has TPS status. That would include, say, like Ecuadorians or Syrians. Those people still lost their status. Now, the decision lifted the previous lower court blocks, and it cleared the path to finally end this pathway that was only ever supposed to be temporary. Now, the Biden regime abused this program for years and repeatedly extended it and allowed hundreds of thousands of people to come in, obtain work permits, put down roots. A lot of them are down in South Florida's Little Haiti and surrounding communities. But it all started after the earthquake in 2010, and again, it was only meant to be temporary. It was not meant to be a pathway to citizenship for anybody who could come here. So former Secretary of Kristi Noem from DHS had correctly determined that conditions in Haiti no longer justify the special designation, and this is why the Trump administration moved to end it. The same can be said for El Salvador, Ecuador, a number of different South and Central American countries. If they were given TPS status, the dangers simply just don't exist anymore. And the Trump administration got rid of it, but the activist judges tried to block it at the last minute. And thank God for the U.S. Supreme Court, because they slapped it all down. So a lot of people were confused when the Trump administration extended the work authorization. Now, it should be noted that this only applies to Haitians who are actually working. If you're a Haitian and you had TPS and you're here in the United States and you were just bumming around, you were freeloading off the government, or you were staying at your baby mama's house and letting her pay for everything, you're not going to get that extension, okay? And even if you do have a job, it's only going to be for 2 weeks. So that pushes the deadline from July 10th to July 24th, and that is theoretically because there is ongoing litigation where they are still trying to fight this in one form or another. And I don't know if anybody here lives in southern Florida. I've never been to Little Haiti. The closest I've been would have been Ybor in that's kind of like Miami. Those are Cubans, and the Cubans are totally different. They're usually based. They're usually conservative, and they all want to become Americans, and they want to work and stuff. But Haitians, that's just a little bit different. I had to give blood. I had to get labs done a couple of weeks ago, and my nurse was definitely a Haitian. And I got to be honest, I was a little bit nervous at first, but then he took my blood as painlessly as I have ever had to give it. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even notice when he stuck the needle in. It was like a breath of fresh air because I've been through a lot of different phlebotomists and nurses in my time, and this guy did a great job, okay? And there were more than a few vials of blood he had to get. Okay, so the TPS beneficiaries will keep their status and employment authorization, and their documentation will remain valid per the court order. Forms I-766, which are the employment authorization documents with category A12 or C19, remain valid through that extension. The extension is limited relief until the lower courts align with the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Mullen versus Doe, which was issued on June 25th. So, the verification of an alien who has received an approval for TPS that has not been withdrawn using information from any TPS-related document will, of course, be in this group, and TPS beneficiaries will receive a save manual response telling them where they stand. If they have temporary protected status because of an employment authorization, they will get notice of that. The employment authorized through date will be the employment authorized document, and the expiration will be July 24th. And DHS comments, TPS, and employment authorizations are extended per a court order. Please check the USCIS TPS Haiti webpage regularly for updates. So essentially, this was a move that the administration was forced to take because the lower court appears to be dragging their feet just a little bit. At least this way they can say, we did everything within our power to try to fall within parameters that we could actually work with the court. If they get to July 24th and there is still no forward movement at the lower court level, I would have to imagine that the government is just going to start deporting people. That's certainly what I would do. Okay, now, this is an interesting story. So last week, we learned that the administration was going after Randy Weingarten, the leader of the teachers union. Well, now we learn that the DOJ has launched another investigation against the president of another union, this time a grand jury investigation into UAW president Shawn Fain. Now, Shawn is accused of allegedly pressuring an official to secure benefits for his fiance and his sister. Now, this was Shawn, I believe, speaking at the Democratic National Convention. He wore this shirt that said, "Trump is a scab, vote Harris." So the Trump Justice Department has launched a federal grand jury investigation into UAW President Shawn Fain over serious allegations of abuse of power and self-dealing. This sounds like par for the course for union bosses. And believe me, there's going to be somebody in the chat who says, "Hey, what's your problems with unions, buddy?" Well, I don't have necessarily a problem with unions per se. I know that they do good for certain categories of workers, and obviously they've been necessary at certain times in American history. But I think that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I've seen far too much corruption coming out of the top levels of unions in the past. Not everybody, but enough of them where I think it's safe for me to say that there is definitely corruption within the union. So certainly a grand jury thought that there was enough to go ahead and make a call on this. They have subpoenaed the UAW's court-appointed monitor as part of this probe into claims that Mr. Fain pressured a high-ranking union official to secure benefits for his fiancée and his sister. Now, the investigation follows a damning series of reports from the Federal Monitor. They've documented retaliation against top UAW leaders who pushed back on questionable spending decisions. It appears that Fain was using the UAW as his personal piggy bank. This is exactly the kind of corruption that we don't need and why unions tend to get a bad rap. But the culture of corruption that I speak of has long plagued the United Auto Workers. The multiple former UAW presidents and top officials were convicted and sent to prison in the past. There was one of the largest labor racketeering scandals in modern history that gave birth out of the UAW. They were using the dues of members to buy themselves luxury cars, golf trips, bribes, and personal enrichment. If I'm not mistaken, isn't what's his name? Who's the guy who went missing? Jimmy Hoffa? No, he was a Teamster. Is the Teamsters the UAW or is that a different union? Somebody in the chat will know. Teamsters. Let's take a look. No, the Teamsters is different. It's just a different union. Okay. Anyways, so the UAW was placed under federal consent decree because of this racketeering scheme after this previous wave of convictions. So the monitor is there to keep this place clean and to stop this type of corruption from taking place. But obviously, Mr. Fain couldn't help himself. Shawn Fain ran for president as a so-called reformer. But the more things change at the UAW, the more they stay the same. So the court-appointed monitor is a man by the name of Neil Barofsky, and he has repeatedly accused Fain of abusing his authority. Previous monitor reports detailed how Fain retaliated against the UAW Secretary-Treasurer Margaret Mock, as well as the Vice President Rich Boyer, after they resisted questionable expenditures. One report highlighted Fain's push for bonuses at a Stellantis training center that would have directly benefited his fiancée. Fain has angrily denied the findings, calling on the monitor's reports as politically charged and false, and accusing Barofsky of playing political games and abusing his power. Fain said in a statement that Barofsky's reports were politically motivated, citing what he described as a heated and highly personal disagreement with the monitor back in 2024 over the union's executive board's call for a ceasefire in Gaza, because that's what I want out of my local auto union, is a bunch of talk about something that's happening in a country that has nothing to do with us. Now, for more than 2 years after becoming aware of Vice President Boyer's allegations and on the eve of our election, Mr. Borofsky has chosen to publicly release a politically charged and false report about me. The most reasonable conclusion is that he is playing political games and abusing his power, Paine wrote in a statement, which was dated on Tuesday and released on Thursday. Now, a spokesperson for Jenner and Block, which is the law firm that employs Borofsky, said that he had acted with the highest levels of professionalism, integrity, and respect in his role in public service, private practice, and as a DOJ-appointed monitor. Art Wheaton is a labor studies professor at Cornell University, and he said that although the federal watchdog can take severe disciplinary action, some of which could affect Paine's ability to run for office, the potential for drastic or criminal punishment in the case does not appear likely to reach that level. Well, the only problem is until the DOJ opens up a grand jury investigation looking into the illegal activities of UAW President Shawn Fain. This is the same Shawn Fain who, during his speech on the opening night of the 2024 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, blasted President Trump and unfurled a red T-shirt emblazoned with the words I read at the beginning, "Trump is a scab." Well, it looks to me like the only scab is Shawn Fain, because he's the one ripping off his members. What a prick. All right, Muse, M the Painter, Teamsters Retirement Fund built Vegas. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah, I just hear so much about fraud coming out of these areas. All right, you guys, I do have another sponsor I need to bring up real quick. Let me just get that here. All right, so thank you very much, you guys. If you haven't yet, please do me a favor, hit that like button. I would sincerely appreciate it. You can help us out by sharing the show. All right, you guys, one more time, I want to say thank you so much to Neutronics for supporting the program. The website is neutronicslabs.com/red pill. They have that special sale that is going on right now. Their number one product, Man's Edge, their testosterone booster, is available for 50% off if you order it on auto ship. If you don't like it after you get it, you don't feel that it works for you, you can just cancel it and you don't have to pay that extra 50%. But if you do get it on auto ship, you're going to get half off automatically. You're also going to get a free bottle of IGF-1 completely free. And this is something that I think older men definitely need to look at. There's a couple of different ways you can go as you get older. You can go on TRT or you can go the natural way. And this is 100% American made and natural right here. A testosterone supplement that is specifically designed for men who want to improve their health, their vitality, their overall performance, and their well-being, support your stamina, or achieve optimal well-being, muscle growth, boosting your energy levels. All of this is possible with Man's Edge, and it's packed with things like Tribulus terrestris, fenugreek, long jack, L-arginine, L-citrulline, and nitrous oxide. So definitely check this out. And, nitric oxide. I always say nitrous. Nitric oxide, it's very different than nitrous oxide. It's not in a gas form. It's in the liquid form. So anyways, check out their website, neutronicslabs.com/red pill. They've got a whole bunch of 5-star reviews. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to them as well. All of the information is available on the website, and you can pick up their natural testosterone booster, Man's Edge, at 50% off with auto shipping. Get yourself that free bottle of IGF-1. Don't forget to use code REDPILL, and you're also going to get an extra 10% off your order. Thank you very much to them for supporting the program. All right, you guys. Now, getting back into today's news. Earlier today in Maine, I don't know who it was, a person tried to run over an ICE agent, and that attempted use of a vehicle as a weapon caused the ICE agent to open fire in self-defense. Someone has died. And if you probably remember, it was just a couple of days ago, there was a similar incident that happened in Texas where a Mexican national was shot and his son was out there saying, "Oh, my dad, don't use your vehicle as a battering ram and you won't get shot by federal agents. It's pretty simple."
This officer behind me, we're on Hill Street. The officer is standing at the intersection with Bacon Street, turning cars away from the next street up, which is Pool Street. And we know that's closed. We're seeing several police cruisers up there with officers at both ends. I spoke to a neighbor who lives here on Hill Street, just a few houses down from this intersection. She told me she was woken up around 8 o'clock this morning by the sound of gunshots and then a lot of sirens and this heavy police presence. And we are hearing that ICE officers were involved in this shooting, but she told me she had not noticed an increased ICE presence or had not heard about them being in this neighborhood. She did comment that she's always felt safe here living on Hill Street and is now questioning her safety this morning. We are still waiting for more details about exactly what happened and the reason for this shooting, but those details have not yet been released. For now, reporting live in Biddeford, I'm Jamie Azoulay, Maine's Total Coverage.
Well, we do have a little bit more information. Apparently, like I said, this guy attempted to use his car as a battering ram to go after an ICE agent. I'm going to turn that down, but you can see here he was in this white car. And this is him. I believe it's a man. It looks like it's a man. I don't know if it's somebody that ICE was trying to pick up or if it's a local protester that was trying to stop ICE from arresting somebody. But they obviously attempted to give life-saving care to this person at the scene. It did not work. We do have the firsthand report of a local who was present. An eyewitness says the driver was told multiple times to stop by ICE agents, and then he put the car in drive and he drove at an ICE officer, resulting in his death.
I would say 7:15. I was driving through the intersection at Hill Street and Pool Street, and as I was approaching, you could see flashing blue lights, and then as I got closer, they were unmarked, so I assumed they were ICE, and then you could see them with their green vests and stuff, and it said police, ICE, and so as I actually was going through the intersection, I heard yelling. So I know I'm supposed to be paying attention, but I heard yelling off to my... So I looked, and I was watching, and the ICE agent was yelling and drew his weapon, and he kept yelling and warning the person driving, which is when the car was put into drive and was trying to hit the ICE officer. And he fired, I would say, probably 4 shots at him. And then by that time, I was also through, the intersection, so I just heard the popping. But I did see him draw his gun at the windshield. And then, the car, you could see the car in the back, like rolling down the street afterwards.
Maybe the guy didn't speak English. Maybe he didn't speak English. I don't know if that's the case, though. Either way, very simple. Do not use your car as a battering ram. If a federal agent requests that you get out of the vehicle, the stupidest thing you could do would be to use your car to drive over them. All right, now, very good news, because earlier today we've talked about the changing the changing rules at banks for quite some time. Today, the Trump administration, early this morning, announced a sweeping set of new rules. All of them are designed to stop illegal aliens from gaining access to our financial system. It is a set of rules given to banks aimed at cracking down on lending to these illegals. It's going to require the lenders to consider that borrowers without legal work authorization may pose an elevated credit risk. It's a move that supporters say could improve housing affordability for Americans. Theoretically, if money that would otherwise be available for Americans to borrow to purchase homes is being given to illegal aliens, well, then that obviously creates a far more competitive market, making it more difficult for an American family to earn the American dream. Now, these rules will require banks and credit unions to account for the possibility that an illegal immigrant borrower could lose their job, be unable to find lawful work, or just be removed from the country before they end up repaying a mortgage or an auto loan or a credit card balance or any type of debt. So the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and the National Credit Union Administration issued the joint guidance under President Donald Trump's executive order from May, which was titled Restoring Integrity to America's Financial System. If you remember, in that executive order, President Trump set out all of these goals. These new guidelines for the banks are part of making that happen. So the agencies all urged banks to take into account that an illegal alien is going to pose increased risks. Banks were told to identify, measure, and control those risks through their underwriting and loan monitoring systems. It's not to say that banks may not be willing to loan to an illegal alien, but if their credit rating is reduced as a factor because they are an illegal alien, then it may just become prohibitively expensive for that illegal alien to get a mortgage or to get a car note or to get a credit card. So the new rules make immigration enforcement part of ordinary bank lending decisions. A loan supported by income from unauthorized employment must now be evaluated in light of the U.S. government's efforts to expand workplace enforcements and removals. So the approach resembles the transition risk framework that regulators previously applied to climate policy, which was gay as fuck. Pardon me, gay AF. Banks were expected, Freudian slip there. Banks were expected to consider whether future government action or changing consumer preferences could weaken a borrower or strand an asset. Like, imagine before, if you were a regular person and you just happened to be looking to get a beachfront property, the bank might put into the loan in terms of their risk factor profile, oh, well, this property is only 20 feet away from the current water line. And we anticipate that in the next 10 years, that water line is going to be at the foundation of their building. So it's simply not worth giving them the money to buy that property and forcing you to purchase that property outright. Of course, if you are it is, yes, man. I didn't mean to say it out loud. If you're an Obama or something like that, obviously they're going to lend you money to get a house or build wherever you damn well please. So the transition risk, banks were expected to consider whether future government action or changing consumer preferences could weaken a borrower or strand an asset. Here, that transition risk is immigration enforcement and the possibility that a borrower's income might disappear before the loan is repaid. Now, banks are also told to examine their exposure to industries, certain types of employers, and geographic regions that could be disproportionately affected by the prevalence of illegal immigrants. Now, of course, if you are not an illegal immigrant, none of these things are going to have any effect on you. Unless maybe you are married to an illegal immigrant and a significant portion of your income is coming from your illegal alien wife's job. Probably don't get married to an illegal alien. Or if you are an illegal alien and you really do want to stay living here, then become a citizen of the United States. That's the best advice that I can possibly offer you. So this is really good news. Love to see the action at work. All right, so we are going to transition for a few minutes to talk specifically about illegals. And here we're going to visit a human trafficking operation out of Hendersonville, Tennessee. 5 men were arrested last month for engaging in human trafficking. Now, 3 of them were illegal aliens from Cuba. Not the based Cubans, the commie Cubans, and they were released into the country during the last presidential administration. ICE lodged detainers on June 12th for Alanson Guerrero Ramirez, Brian Duane Rodriguez Pena, and Lazaro Rodriguez Santos. Now, ICE gave a bit of information to Border Hawk News. They said that Customs and Border Protection first encountered Rodriguez Pena on June 5th, 2021, as part of a group of 11 people who crossed the Rio Grande into the United States, and of course, they came here illegally. In November of that same year, a Border Patrol agent encountered Rodriguez Santos near Yuma, Arizona. Guerrero Ramirez first entered the U.S. illegally in 2023 at Brownsville, Texas. That's a normal port of entry. CBP issued Guerrero Ramirez a notice to appear, and they paroled him into the United States because the Biden administration had a catch-and-release policy. Human trafficking is a cruel crime that exploits vulnerable people for profit, said acting ICE Director David J. Ventura. By working alongside our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, ICE is helping dismantle criminal organizations, protecting victims, and helping hold criminal illegal aliens accountable for exploiting others. There were 9 individuals that were identified as possible victims and offered resources through a group called Thistle Farms. They are a local human trafficking victim service organization. These are the 3 Cubans that were arrested as part of this human trafficking sting, and it's good to see that these dirty so-and-sos are not going to be on the streets trafficking children any longer. Now, we have some new information from Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. He said, I changed the rules to stop illegal migrants, illegal aliens who don't speak English from driving big rigs. But Massachusetts is trying to block the Department of Transportation from enforcing these rules both in and out of court. If radical leftists had not sued, the illegal truck driver who killed that Pennsylvania state trooper wouldn't have had a commercial driver's license, and that state trooper, Michael Pahira, would still be alive. This is about the safety of the American people on our roads, and the rules are clear. States can pull illegal, non-domiciled CDLs, and they should. So let's take a listen to Secretary Duffy.
The English language proficiency, this is illegals who've come in the country that can get driver's licenses. This was from the last administration. I've changed the rules. When I changed the rules, I was sued by states like Massachusetts, and if they hadn't sued me and a judge hadn't paused us, this man would have never had a license, and Trooper Pahira would still be alive. These liberal, radical leftists are fighting us every step of the way. We might disagree on immigration and how many people should come in this country, but every single, whether it's a governor, a representative, congressman, senator, should support us in the safety of making sure the American people, when they get on the road, are safe with other drivers. And frankly, they fought us. So now I want to be clear, for the American people looking forward, the rules are clear, and we have states partnering and participating with us. However, looking back, states could do a better job of realizing and recognizing where they've issued illegal licenses, revoke those licenses. I can't force them to do that. I can't make them do that. The Congress hasn't given me that authority. But on their own volition, they can pull those licenses, and they should, and keep Americans safe.
And I wish they would, because like I said last week, every single time I got to talk about an illegal alien responsible for the murder of some child or a state trooper or somebody just, trying to change a tire on the side of the road, it is seriously demoralizing. Now, we also have an announcement from the FBI on an arrest, a man by the name of Abdullah Anwar. Now, he is a Pakistani scammer. He was extradited from Qatar to the United States. He was involved in a money laundering network that was responsible for more than $1 billion in losses over a 5-year period when he was active here in the United States. Now, he's already been arrested before. He was arrested previously, and he was out on pretrial release. And so he fled the United States and went to Pakistan. This was back in 2021, so he's been on the run for about 5 years. But the FBI does not forget. The Dallas field office investigated the fraudulent identity production, counterfeit device manufacturing, transit and cargo theft rings, and related criminal enterprises that Anwar was involved in. And the investigation culminated in the indictment for Anwar on charges including conspiracy to transport stolen property, conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. So after fleeing the country after the indictment, he left for Pakistan and then ended up in Qatar. And now he is in custody in Collin County, Texas. He arrived here from Qatar in Texas on July 10th, 2026. And it looks like he is just a little bit freaked out about what might happen to him in prison. And that is with good reason. I'm sure that they are going to treat him just fine while he's there. All right, now, from Greensboro, South Carolina, Gwendolyn Singleton has pled guilty to healthcare fraud in connection with a scheme to fraudulently bill the North Carolina Medicaid program for over $1.7 million of urine drug tests that were never performed. And the documents show that Singleton, a 55-year-old woman, owned and operated a business called Joel's Center of Hope. It was located in Greensboro, and it purported to provide substance abuse treatment, which included these so-called urine drug tests between June of 2021 and March of 2023. Now, Joel submitted approximately $1,735,865 worth of these fraudulent urine test claims directly billed to Medicaid. A nurse practitioner and a doctor were listed as the ordering providers on the claims, but both providers reported they never ordered any urine drug tests for Joel's Center of Hope. And over the course of that scheme, they were able to steal that $1.7 million. Sentencing is scheduled for October 22nd of this year. Singleton faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, a period of supervised release for up to 3 years, and of course, monetary penalties. I don't care where you're from. If you're an American or not, I want you to be brought up on charges. All right, now we are going to talk about President Trump's upcoming special live address he's going to give us from, I believe, the Oval Office on Thursday night. But before we do, we got to give some context, because right now, earlier today, MS Now, over the weekend and earlier today, they began to report on President Trump's administration's likely efforts to steal the election, their own conspiracy theories, and I got to say, I am here for it. I absolutely love it. Now, the reporter from MS Now, David Rode, I guess he's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and at one time he was kidnapped by the Taliban. He's now the senior national security reporter for MS Now. He is bringing news about this whole of government effort that President Trump has to essentially, from their perspective, interfere in the election. But from our perspective, he is fortifying the election. Isn't it funny how that works? Remember how Time Magazine published that article right after the 2020 election where they said that they, quote, fortified the election, but it was obvious that they were just describing how they stole it. So in his report published at MS Now, he claims the administration is orchestrating a coordinated effort across multiple agencies to push what Rode calls conspiracy theories ahead of the 2026 midterms. Basically, he says we can expect the following. Document dumps within weeks. Internal documents are being released which back up President Trump's narrative and what we know to be true about non-citizen voting and foreign interference. It sounds like this is going to be the release from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that we've been waiting on. He is also, of course, speaking with the attorney generals of all 50 states. We know about that. We reported on that last week. The letters to election officials warning of prosecution if non-citizens are allowed to vote in their states. Also, there is the Secretary of State hosting a global conference on the threat of Antifa. We spoke about that last week. Marco Rubio basically bringing in all of the whole of government's effort around the world to rein in Antifa before anything can be done on their behalf. There is also, of course, the ongoing investigation into Fulton County, Georgia, and that 2020 election. FEMA grants, that was just announced last week, to election officials will be cut unless those states adopt the federal election practices that the president has already clearly spelled out on a number of occasions. And as we have also reported, ICE agents may be deployed near, but not within 100 feet, of polling places, and they would obviously be looking to see if non-citizens were showing up to vote. The irony, of course, is hilarious because these people stole the election back in 2020. These things that President Trump has suggested need to take place are very obvious. And the only thing that Mr. Rode doesn't mention is the passage of the Save America Act, which, of course, would be making sure that citizens of the United States prove their identity and only citizens are allowed to vote in the United States federal elections. So he says that's non-citizen voting hardly ever happens. And certainly it doesn't happen enough that anybody should ever think about it. This is what they always say. Antifa? Oh, no. That's overblown. Antifa's not even a real organization, guys. Why are you so concerned about Antifa? Documents? Oh, the documents. Oh, he can release anything that he wants. And of course, his documents are going to say that the election was likely stolen. President Trump has been running these conspiracy theories for several years now. Well, the wonderful, wonderful news is that they are also now reporting that President Trump will, in fact, be delivering an address this Thursday, specifically addressing newly declassified intelligence reports, which point directly to the theft of the 2020 election, foreign nations interfering in that 2020 election, and President Trump will likely be rolling out some major policy plan as a result. I'm sure he will also be using it to press Congress to pass the Save America Act, because he's going to say, look, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the boss of all of the intelligence agencies, they are telling us that, yes, in fact, I was right. When I told you the election was stolen, I was totally correct. And we've got the evidence to prove it. We will also be able to point to specific foreign entities to show exactly what they did. And this newly declassified information will, of course, be given to us, we the people. And maybe finally we will be vindicated in the eyes of these TDS suffering brainworms having people. Now, we also, as I mentioned, still have the ongoing investigation into Fulton County. I think a lot of people have been dissatisfied with the speed of this investigation, but I kind of had the feeling that maybe the reason we hadn't seen anything pop up yet is because they were waiting for that report from Tulsi Gabbard. This way, we will have multiple points of confirmation of foreign interference in the election. And of course, then we can also reveal the full theft of Georgia's election at the exact same time. So last week, we reported that Kash Patel had brought in hundreds of FBI agents from all around the country, specifically so that they could dive in headlong into the 2020 election in Georgia. And according to a number of sources within the FBI, there has reportedly been a firing of 2 intelligence analysts, a husband and a wife, because they apparently refused to participate in Kash Patel's directive to investigate the 2020 presidential election. Now, these are a couple of likely Democrats who are based out of Atlanta, a husband and wife, and they told colleagues they did not believe the investigation was justified, and they said, we're just not going to do it. So they were reportedly escorted out of the FBI's office after refusing to do what their bosses told them. The FBI did not confirm the firings, but they did defend their decision. They said the FBI will always investigate credible allegations of matters related to federal elections. Every employee at this FBI is to uphold our mission and adhere to our standards. Any deviation will not be tolerated. So as far as this investigation is concerned, we have a reported 260 investigative analysts assisting with it and making sure that we can bring as much evidence of the fraud that took place in Fulton County, Georgia back in 2020. And it's even more vital now that the court shut down these subpoenas to gather the names and contact details for every Fulton County elections employee that worked back then. Now, according to the FBI memorandum that's being released, analysts were tasked with completing approximately 708 records checked by July 17th, and the memo describes the operation as Priority 1 from FBI Director Kash Patel. Specific records under review have not been disclosed, of course, in a well-operating investigation within a slick and well-operating organization like the FBI. You would expect that you're not going to hear about those things until they're ready to announce indictments. Now, the internal memo stated that overtime is good, weekends is good, holidays is good. We are putting all hands on deck until we get through the end of this. Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitts doesn't like what they're doing, though. He complained about the expanded review, calling it a Hail Mary, and saying he had not been informed of the move. Well, why would they tell you? You are likely one of the people who would probably try to stop them from finding evidence of malfeasance. Georgia's Rhino Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger also claims that his teams run the most secure elections in the nation. but he would assist the investigation. I don't know that I want Brad Raffensperger anywhere near this investigation. Now, the expanded effort follows what we already saw, that raid on the Fulton County warehouse back in January when they seized more than 600 boxes of election materials, including all of the original 2020 ballots, all of it part of an ongoing Justice Department investigation. I don't know if the administration is going to appeal the ruling from from that activist judge shutting down the subpoenas, but I would not be surprised if they did. The U.S. District Judge William Ray wrote, "Given the low need for the subpoenaed information and the highly burdensome nature of the disclosure of the same, the subpoena is unreasonable and must be quashed." Now, up to this point, no criminal charges have been filed, and federal authorities have released a few details about the scope of the investigation, but we have little to go on as of right now. Considering that election security, election integrity, election theft, fake and gay elections has been a high priority and a major focus of everything that we've talked about here for roughly the last 10 years. I can only imagine the direction they're going in. And I think that all of us understand that the number of moving pieces to secure the elections in the United States of America are just vast, so big. If they don't get a handle on this, then nobody's going to be able to believe anything that we're told moving into the future. Elections will forever remain fake and gay in our minds. And I just saw a new announcement come up, but it looked like it was just, oh my goodness. Somebody is saying President Trump is planning to announce that Georgia's two senators, Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, are illegitimate because of fraud, a well-placed source in Georgia tells us. Announcement could come as soon as tonight. Ooh-wee, boys and girls, this is going to be a good one. I am excited. I'm feeling the tingles. Oh, man. Can you believe that? If President Trump actually goes on television with evidence and he says Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are both fraudulent, man alive, that would be something else. That would be something else. Let me see. I'm looking to see if we got anything else. President Trump's, the CIA director. Oh, my goodness. President Trump's Thursday evening speech to the nation will reportedly show newly declassified intelligence reports that reveal a foreign nation's plans to interfere in the 2020 presidential election, and the president will be joined by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Acting DNI Bill Pulte, FBI Director Kash Patel, and DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen. Boys and girls, man, that is going to be a good one. All of the heavy hitters, the people that you definitely want at your side if you're going to accuse a foreign nation of meddling in your elections. Who do you guys think it could be? I mean, obviously, Ukraine might be the nation that we're talking about. That would probably be the easiest one to topple. Can you imagine if the United States went in and took over Ukraine? Ooh, I cannot wait for that. Well, today's Monday. Thursday can't come soon enough. I will be streaming that. I will definitely be streaming that. All right. Oh my gosh. Senator Ron Johnson is now claiming that the proof of life photo of Mitch McConnell is not new.
The election. Now, Mitch McConnell, can we talk a little Mitch McConnell too? Because I saw a picture that I'm not sure I believe is actually Mitch McConnell from the hospital after what I've heard and what I've seen. Do you believe Mitch McConnell is the one who said, "I'm okay, here's the picture of my wife, Elaine Chao, and I in that hospital bed"?
Well, I just heard from some other source that was an older photo. So I really don't know. I haven't talked to Mitch. I certainly wish he and his family well. I hope he can recover. It's sad to watch people age, no matter who that person is. You know, I've served with Mitch McConnell for 16 years. Okay, obviously I disagree with him on a host of things, but I also know he loves this country. He loves the Senate. He reveres the Senate. So again, I do try and put the best construction on things. I try and look.
All right. So nothing concrete, but basically he's hearing the same stuff as us. Now, MS Now is continuing to freak out live on the air about President Trump's upcoming announcement. Take a listen to this shrieking harpy.
Of the 2020 election and potentially sow doubt in the upcoming midterms. A new White House task force is expected to begin releasing documents on alleged and so far absolutely baseless evidence of election irregularities in the coming weeks. That is according to two officials with knowledge of the matter. An acting director of national intelligence, Bill Pulte, will be a part of it. I'm going to guess of the 2020 election.
That's right. A new White House task force. So they are going to put together a full intel task force looking into the issue of election fakeness. Oh, good Lord. All right. Now, speaking about elections, I read this with Brian on the air this morning, and I have to say I was a little shocked. You know, we have talked about the election irregularity claims that are coming out of Colombia. Well, Kristi Noem, of course, is the joint head of the Shield of the Americas. And this text was released by the governments of not only the United States, but also Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guyana, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad, and Tobago. Okay. And I think those are that's the same nation, Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. So basically they say, we observe with deep concern the recent statements and actions that, without duly substantiated grounds, cast doubt on the integrity of the electoral process in the Republic of Colombia and generate uncertainty regarding the normal course of the institutional transition. The reason I don't care for this statement is because this is like the same sort of lip service they've been giving to us here in the United States ever since President Trump had 2020 stolen from him. Now, the current president of Colombia he's put forth a lot of pieces of evidence that, if investigated, might lead you to believe that the election was somehow not done properly. But they continue: in every constitutional democracy, the sovereign will of the citizens, freely expressed at the ballot box and formalized by the competent electoral authorities, constitutes the sole foundation of the legitimacy of power. That kind of sounds to me like they're saying, if the experts say that it's good, then it is good, and you must accept it as good. Now, it could just be that they know the guy who's coming in is somebody that they're going to be in control of, and so maybe they're cool with it. I don't know. But disregarding the results officially proclaimed by said authorities constitutes a serious disregard of the popular will and for the principles that underpin the rule of law. We reject any action, statement, or decision that seeks to delegitimize the mandate conferred by the citizens, to discredit without basis the competent electoral authorities, or to obstruct the institutional transition known in Colombia as the empalme process. The transition between governments does not constitute a political concession, but rather a constitutional and institutional duty designed to guarantee the continuity of the state, democratic stability, and the effective fulfillment of the popular will. We issue a firm call to all Colombian authorities to act in strict adherence to the Constitution, the law, and democratic principles, to respect the results officially proclaimed by the competent electoral authorities, and to guarantee a peaceful, orderly, and transparent transition in accordance with the highest standards of the rule of law. So, I mean, ultimately, it sounds like, you know, we want things to continue in the direction they're going, and if you have a problem with that, then that's going to be a problem. You know, the one thing I can tell you is that leftist governments have fallen like dominoes since USAID money quit flowing into Central and South America. I can't argue with that, and even if there was a little bit of prodding or pushing in one direction or another, frankly, I don't mind, because I think that we are moving in a good direction. Communism, socialism is falling, and we need to keep going in that direction. All right. Now, before we continue, I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble, and let me say thank you very much to everybody who's standing here watching with us. I just need to take 60 seconds to give a big shout out to a brand that has supported creators on Rumble for a while. Emerald Med. I actually interviewed their owner, Nate Madden, over the weekend. Nate and I had a great conversation. I urge you to go watch that interview. They make CBD products from hemp, but there are some things you may not know. Instead of using one crop, they actually use 3 different hemp strains because no one strain contains every compound that they wanted to include in their products. And they also have different extraction methods for the various strains. They combine hot and cold-pressed extracts, since some of the hemp compounds are activated by heat, others are damaged by the heat. So, while on top of that, they also use raw extracts to preserve minor compounds, trace minerals, and micronutrients that are typically lost through other extraction methods. Their CBD oil alone has got 6 to 9 raw batches blended into it. So instead of the 1 to 10 compounds you might get from a standard CBD product, you are going to have over 50 or more compounds in their products. You got a lot of brands who talk about freedom and they wave the flag when it's trendy, but Emerald Med is actually certified based. They've been using their company to fight for people's medical freedom for a long time. During the COVID pandemic, when people were getting their bank accounts shut down and their tires slashed, Emerald Med put their money where their mouth is. They put money every single year into fighting laws that limit access to health alternatives. And they often say that they want to make products so effective that Helen Keller can see the difference. I love that. Nothing, however, is a cure-all. You guys know that, but it's worth a try. So maybe they can help you feel 30, 60, 80% better. Maybe it's enough to help support you sleeping better. Maybe it gives you a few hours a day of just not feeling awful. Maybe it's enough to be able to do things that you used to be able to do and can now do again. But they are celebrating America's 250th, and you can click below or scan the QR code right now to try them at a discount today. Give it a try. And thank you very much to Emerald Med for supporting the show. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen right there. Appreciate them. And again, it's ironic that Mitch McConnell is missing right now because the conversation was about Mitch McConnell and how Mitch McConnell not only pretty much restarted the hemp industry here in the United States, but then last year, he was almost single-handedly responsible in the Senate for destroying the hemp industry. The issue revolves around companies that are creating THC products from hemp. So effectively, you know, there's not much THC in hemp. It's like 0.5% or something like that. And what companies will do will extract the CBD constituents out of the hemp products, and then they will chemically alter it to make things like THCO or THCA, all of these different things that aren't naturally occurring in the products. But they can be created through chemistry. So what they've done is they have banned hemp products that have less, that have the 0.5% in them. And that's like everything. That's like all of the hemp that's used to make CBD. So all of these farmers could no longer continue to grow the hemp products. And it's not like the hemp products and the CBD products are still not going to be there. It's just that companies moved offshore. And so they killed hundreds of thousands of American jobs. And they're also going to take all of this American money and innovation out of the market. So if you go to find the interview that I published this weekend, which says McConnell's betrayal on it, Nate and I talk for about an hour. It's a great convo. He and his family are awesome. And there is a link so that you can identify your senator and your congressman. And I suggest that you call them and tell them that, hey, you know what? Closing a loophole and people getting high is one thing, but destroying an entire industry because you haven't made the correct restrictions, well, that is something entirely. So definitely go check it out. Also, thank you very much to Sean Joe for the can and another can. Thank you to M the Painter. Thank you to Sean Joe for a can. Thank you to Moon Baby for the cookie who says, working and lurking. What up, fam-a-lam? Thank you to Sean Joe for a can and a cookie and another cookie. Thank you to Filter Dog who says, President Trump will announce that both of Georgia's Democrat U.S. senators are illegitimate due to election fraud. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Now, let us continue our conversation about elections, but we will go from one end of the country to the other. In California, it appears that the state is now encouraging and even recruiting non-citizen teenagers to become election workers. Yeah, Ebor's in Tampa. Thank you, Kitsko. Yeah, sure. Nothing could go wrong with having illegal aliens working in our elections. And certainly if they are illegal aliens who are not adults, of course, because they're not adults, they're not going to be charged. And even if they were adults, let's be honest, they probably wouldn't charge them anyways. But these are people who can't vote, not only because they're not adults, but also because they're not citizens of our country. So why in the hell does California want them handling ballots and voting equipment? It's like California is trying to put a cigarette butt out on an open wound on a place where we can't reach or stop them. So green card holders as young as 16 can check voters off official rosters. They can distribute ballots. They can handle election equipment, and they can even help close polling locations. California wants you to know. The state admits they do not fully track just how many illegal aliens under the age of 18 they are actually employing. Now, they cannot legally vote in American elections, but California is recruiting them to help administer them. Documents reviewed by by Natalie Winters on Substack reveal that California officials are directing public schools to help identify teenagers as young as 16 to work inside polling locations during this upcoming midterm election. And that includes lawful permanent residents who are not even U.S. citizens. These students are not being enlisted to hand out stickers or direct voters towards the entrance. County election agencies say they might issue ballots. They might check voters off official rosters. They can help operate election equipment. They can assist voters throughout the day. They can prepare ballots for pickup. They can participate in closing down those polling locations. Can you imagine us going to a foreign country and saying, hey, I would like to help administer your election? They would probably think we were CIA and we were there to help undermine their election. So the law that allows this to happen allows all of those things that I mentioned to be done. And that includes working with the questionable Dominion voting systems machines. The kids don't have to tally ballots. They will, however, have access to the machines themselves. So it's no wonder that people in America think elections are fake and gay, and we can't trust anything that comes out of them. California is now really breaking new ground when it comes to the idea of fake and gay elections. So this is what happens when the Democrat Party rules the state and nobody else is allowed to assist. G. Fontes says, what AI capabilities might China have to generate images? Also, I don't remember where, but I read a rumor I couldn't verify early in the morning on Saturday after midnight that Graham had died, and then 24 hours later, he was. That's interesting. I didn't hear it at any time until I read that tweet at like 3 a.m. So, yeah, I think that any government agency might have artificial intelligence sufficiently powerful enough to create an image that we would not be able to tell the difference from. Jim Kyle says President Trump changed to Thursday his nation's address in the 2020 election. Okay. Lee Walden says, I love the bright bat rebuttal. I love the bright bat rebuttal FU where boom, bada boom. And then, Zach, your shirts are really pretty cool. By chance, do they have a muscle T-shirt or better yet, old man's button down? Good stuff, troops. All the best where we go when we go all. So they have button downs like I wear. They have some of them that come in polos, so pullovers, but no muscle shirts. I suppose you could get one and you could cut the sleeves off. However, I've got so many that that might happen. Let me ask you this, you guys. If I was to do a raffle or like sell some of my old shirts on eBay, would anybody be interested in actually purchasing them? Because, I mean, there is a market to sell the used shirts on eBay. But like, I thought, like, what if I opened it to people in the chat first? Like, would that be something, or is that like too weird? I don't know. Sean Anon, what's up, homie? Good to see you, buddy. All right. Now, we also need to give a big shout out to Senator Jim Banks. So if you'll remember, in the decision that was made regarding birthright citizenship, Justice Kavanaugh agreed in part, and then he dissented in part. In his dissent, he essentially handed a framework to Congress to be able to say, you know, this is how we're going to solve the issue of birthright citizenship. So Senator Jim Banks is introducing a bill using that pathway that was laid out by Justice Kavanaugh. So he'll be introducing a Citizenship Act today. He may have done it already, but essentially it's legislation that is going to close the door on allowing for birthright citizenship to take place here in the United States. The children of illegal aliens, birth tourists, people that are coming here and staying at these homes in Texas or California, or there might even be some down here in Florida, or the people who are taking these birthright cruises and then just settling into U.S. waters, popping out a couple of kids. It's a water baby in that case, not a dirt baby, and then they can go ahead and go back to their home countries. But essentially what he's doing is classifying the parents of those children as invaders under federal law. Now, if you are an invader, then you are no longer eligible to confer birthright citizenship to your child. So this obviously comes in the wake of the Supreme Court decision and the executive order that President Trump already wrote on birthright citizenship. I thought that it was good. I thought the language was good. I thought that it was going to be a no-brainer. But obviously we have people on the Supreme Court of the United States of America who appear to be compromised in one way or another. It was Justice Roberts who authored that majority opinion along with Justice Amy Coney Barrett and the liberals, and Brett Kavanaugh concurred merely on statutory grounds. So the legislation from Banks is going to respond directly to the ruling by codifying the argument that individuals who do enter the United States illegally should be treated as invaders for the purpose of federal citizenship. I think this is brilliant, and if this is able to get passed, well then, a lot of things would get wrapped up. So the supporters argue that the 14th Amendment's phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was never intended to grant automatic citizenship to children of those who entered the country unlawfully. That is how I feel. Or it was never intended to solely be given to the people who are bringing their kids here to become U.S. citizens when they were born. So Banks is using a clever legislative workaround inspired by the Kavanaugh concurrence. Kavanaugh noted that while Trump's executive order conflicted with existing statute, Congress has the power to amend the law and create clear exceptions, and this will be exactly what the bill is going to do. So the legislation would amend the Immigration and Nationality Act to state that any person who enters the U.S. without authorization or for the purpose of engaging in birth tourism is automatically considered an invader. So then their U.S.-born children would never receive automatic citizenship. The Citizenship Act would declare the children of statutory invaders are not entitled to birthright citizenship under the law, and it would, in fact, codify that 2025 executive order. In the summary of the bill, Banks declares any person who enters the United States without authorization or for the purposes of engaging in birth tourism considered an invader, and then amends the Immigration and Nationality Act to exclude the children of those invaders. And it's very key because the use of the term invaders is actually a citation of President Trump's executive order, where he already attempted to declare the fact that these illegal aliens are crossing the border in an invasion. So the bill will also note that the decision previously by the courts leaves that avenue open for Congress to crack down on, and I think that is the reason that Kavanaugh wrote his decision in the way that he did. So we don't need to worry about anything related to a constitutional amendment. We don't need to overturn any prior court decisions. The Citizenship Act will essentially codify what President Trump already wrote in that executive order. We are in the midst of an invasion. We need to amend federal law to revoke the ability for people to gain birthright citizenship, and we need to start enforcing the law as it is. These people are here illegally. Now, once the invader terminology will be given to them, maybe we'll even have a little bit more power to just start rounding them up, because it would be basically the same as if these people had come here from a foreign land to intentionally fight a war. They would definitely be considered an invader. So Mike Johnson spoke over the weekend and said that we are looking at all angles to eliminate what people are calling birth tourism and this unfairly conferred birthright citizenship. Hopefully, Mike Johnson is on the same page as Jim Banks, because I feel like this is a winner. It's so easy to do. We could definitely get the majority in the House, and who knows if we could get 60 votes in the Senate. I don't know. Thank you so much, Shonanon, for rating the stream. Lee Walden says, count me in. What size? Some of them will be a medium. Some of them will be a large. I guess I would say everybody get yourself an eBay account. And then once I am prepared to start selling them, I will put them up on eBay. Lee says, when will we stop the enemy from within for serious action and Constitution to work in our right? I mean, I think that's what we're in the midst of doing right now. Because even the term the enemy within could be looked at from a couple of different angles. We're talking about American citizens that are enemies of the state. Are we talking about illegal aliens that are already inside the walls? Are we talking about foreign influence that is acting within our country? All of these things separately are currently being addressed in a variety of different ways. All right. Also, Filter Dog, we talked about that one. Zeta Anand, thank you for the ship, my friend. He says, love you, brother, love you too. Also, thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. All right, so earlier today, U.S. Capitol Police arrested a man at the northernmost barricade at the U.S. Capitol building. There was an alert that said they were responding to what was deemed a potential security concern at this barricade, and they urged staff and other personnel to avoid the area. Later on, they announced that they had arrested a man who was carrying a firearm. At the time this article was published, an investigation was still ongoing. Let me do a quick refresh and see if any additional information has been released. It looks like
Ivy League side.
Okay, let's see if anything new. Moments ago at the U.S. Capitol.
Capitol Police saying that they have arrested a man at the north barricade of the U.S. Capitol building who had a firearm. Firearms are prohibited on Capitol grounds. Now, Capitol Police say that they are working to learn more about the suspect and why he drove to the U.S. Capitol.
Okay, nothing. Let's see. Here he is being arrested. Oh, he looks like a black dude with a big white afro.
I'm so...
Okay, here we go. This is him being arrested. Looks like he's driving a Ford Bronco. Nice vehicle. All right, he's wearing combat boots and a pair of pants and a shirt. Nothing really stands out other than that white afro. Looks like he's got a white beard and some sunglasses on. To be honest with you, this could just be a confused driver. Could be not much of anything at all. He doesn't appear to be resisting in any fashion. So, yeah, this could be a big nothing burger, to be honest with you. It's not like the lady that rammed the gates. A couple of people have rammed the gates, and they've gotten dispatched as a result of it. Oh, and it is with great joy that I bring you this story about a black feminist historian who has been found to be a total fraud. Her work is now being labeled as misleading, and as a result, she's being fired from her position as an educator at a cushy academic job. So the New York Times tells the tale of Carrie Greenridge. She wrote a book in 2022 called The Grimkeys. It was hailed for its narrative about a slaveholding family and their work in the abolitionist movement. Publishers Weekly put the book on their list of that year's top books. You must purchase this book. And the American Historical Association handed Miss Greenridge the Joan Kelly Memorial Prize. This is an honor for scholars in women's history and feminist theory. But over time and with a little bit of close attention, the glow has dimmed over the flimsy factual foundation being linked to the end of her gig as a tenured associate professor in the Department of Studies in Race, Colonialism, and Diaspora at Tufts University. She has also lost her book deal. Myra Glenn, a retired professor of American history at Elmira College, was among the first to question what she was reading back in 2024 when she was reviewing the book for a journal. I said, where is she getting this? Boy, it became a major problem. And when she wrote her review, she was brutally honest. She said, all too often, Greenridge lacks the evidence to substantiate many of her major claims. Her work is also riddled with factual errors and repeatedly omits needed endnotes. Glenn also noted that while Greenridge said key letters she cited were held by the University of Michigan, apparently they were not. Greenridge even said her racist critics were out to get her. I am heartbroken that a field I have given my life to can treat me this way. The attack on black women academics is real. I have never plagiarized anything in my life. I have never fabricated anything. And then she added, are there citations that were misattributed? Probably. Now, Patrick Collins, who's a representative of Tufts University, would not discuss when Greenridge and Tufts parted ways, but he said that as early as December 2022, the college was aware of criticism that the book might have contained multiple errors of fact and failed to give appropriate credit to the work of another. Well, I will tell you from my own academic career, if you fail to give appropriate credit, that is what they call plagiarism. And if you have multiple errors of fact in your writing, well, that means that you just made shit up. And you can't cite your work, and that, of course, is not what you want to see in historical nonfiction. The university initiated a thorough peer review involving a panel of external scholars of American history, which identified multiple errors of fact and citation. In keeping with its commitment to ethical conduct and research, the university proactively moved to correct the public record by informing the publisher of the book, W.W. Norton, of the peer review findings. So the book can no longer be found on Norton's website. Greenridge said the college probe of her work was initiated by a white woman against whom Greenridge sought a restraining order. The independent review by outside experts in the field was fair, fact-based, and objective, Collins meanwhile said. We stand by the review and strongly deny any allegations of bias. Now, Greenridge's 2019 book, Black Radical, which is about a civil rights activist by the name of William Monroe Trotter, also won the Mark Linton Historical Prize from the Columbia Journalism School and the Nieman Foundation for Journalism at Harvard University. Stephen Fox, who wrote another book about Trotter, a 1970 biography, said he had some issues with Greenridge's book. It seems well done, except when you look at the footnotes. He said that he could not find the material cited using the sources that Greenridge listed. It is entirely possible that this woman wrote this book with the help of an AI search engine like ChatGPT or something like that, because unfortunately, as some people have found out, when you cite references given to you by ChatGPT and then don't look them up yourself, you might find that ChatGPT just made them up. It just gave you information that it thought would serve your narrative. And, of course, that is obviously a big problem. So I started to think maybe it wasn't just sloppy. I thought maybe it might be something deeper. Obviously it was fake and gay, as we normally find them to be. She uses chat EBT. I like that. Chat EBT. Love it. Okay. So a federal judge earlier today blasted President Trump's lawsuit against the IRS and sanctioned his lawyers. I want to go on record before I even get too deep into this. This seems to be another judge with a grudge against President Trump. Somebody who has made decisions that are inexplicable and are not going to stand. This is a Miami-based U.S. District Judge, Kathleen Williams. She was an appointee of Barack Hussein Obama. Now, even worse than just like saying President Trump shouldn't have had this lawsuit against the IRS, she has also referred acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and President Trump's other attorneys to the state bar authorities for disciplinary action. This is unconscionable, and although I'm not surprised, this is totally inappropriate for what this judge is doing. Back in May, Judge Williams launched an investigation into the Trump administration's settlement with the IRS that led to that original $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund. President Trump had previously dropped his own $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS over the leak of his tax returns in exchange for this deal. So he dropped that lawsuit in exchange for this taxpayer-funded fund to help pay people who were unfairly targeted by the Biden regime. Then in January, President Trump, Eric Trump, Don Jr., and the Trump Organization filed lawsuit against the IRS for the leaking of those tax returns. And after Trump agreed to drop that lawsuit in exchange for the anti-weaponization fund, a group of former judges asked another federal judge to launch an inquiry to determine whether or not the Trump administration defrauded the court. Judge Kathleen Williams then agreed to launch that inquiry, and she agreed to then basically go after the people who were all part of making the deal. Basically now, if you sue someone and you are associated with President Trump, you could lose your law license and you might get brought up on ethics charges. The other part of this is these judges had nothing to do with this case. Kathleen Williams has now also basically said that Trump and the government have to pay these judges for their intervention in this case. It's total bullshit. Same old deep state stuff that we've seen in the past. So I don't anticipate that this is going to stick. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff that they do. Okay. All right. So, I'm not going to read you this one. Yeah, the rest of these stories, I think that we can go ahead and hold off on them because it's just a series of updates on things that we've talked about in the past. All right. Now, before we get going here, I do have one final message that I have to give from my friends over here. Let me just get this pulled up. Let me remind you about the final sponsor of the program, my good friends over at Oneness Drops, onenessdrops.com/redpill78. Chlorine dioxide water purification kits are probably one of the most important things that you could have on hand. If you are ever in a position where you need to make clean, fresh, potable drinking water, then this is going to be the place that you want to have. And hold on, for whatever reason, my camera is not working. So let me get that fixed. There we go. Oh, no. Here it is. Ah, geez, that is totally improperly sized. But either way, the chlorine dioxide water purification kits are very important because you can't last very long without clean, fresh drinking water. So you need to be able to either create clean, fresh drinking water or purify water that you have on hand. So check them out over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. You'll get 15% off your order. When you order through them, you can get it in a couple of different types of formulations. The chlorine dioxide isn't created until you mix parts A and B together. And of course, chlorine dioxide is good for a whole bunch of things, not just making fresh water. If you want to learn more about that, you can find all of the information out there on the internet. The Universal Antidote is a great documentary. I interviewed the creator of that several years ago. You can find that linked in my channel. Also, mullein extract they have there for lung health, and then soursop extract, which is great for cellular regeneration. DMSO, which is an incredible substance that I use for aches and pains all of the time. It also speeds healing. There are people out there who are using DMSO for all kinds of incredible things, and I have referenced those on the show on many different occasions. Also, they have bundles which you can pick up, which are going to be a reduced price because you're getting more things all at the same time. And then you can use my code and you'll get an additional 15% off. They even have herbal cigarettes that are made with mullein that they sent me, but I have to be honest, I haven't tried them yet. So I will go ahead and try one of those this weekend. It's been a long time since I smoked anything. That's kind of why I haven't done it, but I thought that was kind of interesting. All right, so all of the other sponsors of the program are in the description of this video. You guys are awesome. I want to thank you for being here, and I will also now be sending you... Oh, gosh, you know what? Actually, I did want to speak about the murder. Well, Israel has admitted, first of all, that former Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was an IDF Mossad spy, okay? So this is kind of interesting. But yes, actually a British politician named Anne Widdecombe was murdered very recently, and she was a member of Reform. She was like the spokesperson for Reform. And it was pretty obvious to everybody that her murder at her remote home was likely political in nature. And the police immediately said, it's definitely not political. She's just an old woman getting killed out of nowhere in the middle of nowhere, and we don't need to worry about it. Well, now it's been taken over by the counterterrorism investigators, and they have arrested a suspect. And if I had to guess, this is probably a murder by another Muslim extremist in the UK. So a 28-year-old white British man was initially arrested for this murder, and now he's been rearrested on suspicion of commission, preparation, or instigation of acts of terrorism. And that is the counterterrorism policing unit in the Southeast. So this is local Devon and Cornwall police initially who were investigating, and they have said that the murder was politically motivated, but now they're saying it's not politically motivated, it's an act of terror. But in the UK, I think those two things go hand in hand. Now, the Reform Party have said that this was not merely a random occurrence since the very beginning. Lawrence Taylor, the head of the National Counterterrorism Policing, said, building on the progress made by our colleagues in Devon and Cornwall Police, we now have new information and evidence that means counterterrorism policing is now leading the investigation. We are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack. Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Reform UK, said a lot of journalists must now apologize to Nigel and us at Reform, and you know who they are. So they still have not yet identified this individual. We don't really know much more than that, but this is obviously a terrible thing. Absolutely horrible thing. All right. So, yes, that will truly be the end of the show. Hopefully you guys will join me tonight at 10:30 on Baseless Conspiracies. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. And let me just might as well make sure that I don't have anything showing up on Cash App. I don't think that I do, but... Colin on Friday said, get some sun, Whitey. I like that. Okay, guys, I'll see you tomorrow or maybe tonight. Peace. if you guys ever enjoyed the program and you're still here in the Rumble chat, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It's so simple. It's the easiest thing you can do. Best way to support the show.